The freight prices of major global ski routes has observed to be upward trend. Freight prices. Now composite index, which was on 20 January 9698, and year-on-year percentage 82%. It is very good. Shanghai Rotterdam was 14,053. Rotterdam Shanghai 1,452. Then Los Angeles Shanghai 1,262, 138 percentile. It was quite high. Shanghai Los Angeles again very high, 168%. And New York Rotterdam was around 93. Rotterdam New York, there are containers which are taken in the seaports, so there was shortage of containers, and Indian Export Organization. Indian Export Organization is an organization which provides the facilities for the export and import of the various goods and services across the boundary. So it makes the data that we are lacking in containers. We are lacking in containers. जो containers होते हैं friends, जब आप पोर्ट्स पे जाते हो या रेलवे पे जाते हो तो ऐसे कंटेनर्स में भेजा जाता है गुड्स को. So these containers were lacking in numbers. So lack of numbers of containers was a major problem. Now, the Ministry of Commerce Industry provided that the containers were lagging and rising sea freight rates as of 300% to 350%. कंटेनर्स की कमी के चलते दोस्तों हमारे पास महंगाई बढ़ गई और 300 to 350% तक rise होगी prices, which we also see in WPI rise. We saw WPI rise. Wholesale price index was highest around 14.2%. So simultaneously the rise of disposable containers was also high. वैसे कंटेनर्स जो पुराने हो चुके थे, बेकार हो चुके थे, उनको डिस्पोज करना पड़ रहा था. Again they were very high, and containers has fallen from 11% to 5% in 2021. Honestly, production ramped up significantly across the globe, and this will remain persistent problem. Remember it for the prelims as well as mains. Containers की shortage हो गई थी. Then country groups which are taking the unless note otherwise. Now estimation and projections of the countries in this COVID lockdown period. Now United States minus 3.4, and again after COVID 5.6. Then in first COVID wave, second COVID wave 5.6, and after recovery 4%. In 2023 it is projected to be 2.6. Another economy, that is Germany, which is minus 4.6, 2.7, 3.8 in post recovery, post COVID, and projected to be 2.5 in 2023. Now Japan, another major economy, is recovering to be minus 4.5 in first COVID lockdown, second lockdown 1.6, and this year 2022 3.3, and recovery 1.8. Now emerging market economy, we see emerging market economy such as Asian nations, Western Asian nations, which are minus 2.0, 6.5 second wave, then recovery to 4.8 2022 and 4.7 2023. Now India, first we should look upon China. China is having recovery of 2.3% in first COVID wave, in after the lockdown 8.1, then in second wave it's going to 4.8 percentile and projected to be 5.2 in 2023. Now India, our country, India performs minus 7.3 in first lockdown, then recovered to 9.0. Again we see highest in the total bar graph is the recovery of India. पूरे ग्राफ में, पूरे स्टैटिक्स में सबसे बेस्ट रिकवरी हम देखते हैं इंडिया की, which is 9.0 percentile. Again in second recovery it was again 9.0. and in the projected period of 2023, 7.1, again highest in this graph period. Now, we should look about the emerging market, developing economy, and Russia is again very important. Russia in first lockdown period recovered to minus 2.7, then again 4.5, then 2.8 in 2022, very poor, and 2.1 in 2023. So India's overall predictions are quite influencing. India is having the best data in overall data framework. As we can notice from this statistics that India is having the greatest data over the balance sheet in first COVID recovery, second COVID recovery, and 2022 9.0% and 2023. So in this way other countries are also providing well features of the data. Still India is again having the highest data recovery in all the countries across the world, whether it is G20, G7 or other Asian nations and other such nations. Remember for your mains and prelims point of view, prelims as well as mains point of view, very important. Coming to the next. So we were looking around how policy strategies were made in order to curb the COVID pandemic recovery and in order to make the industries and various sectors rise above the fallback of COVID pandemic situation. So we saw in chapter 1 how agile framework was there, which was again a feedback loop based process. Then there was barbell strategy. So agile framework uses the fiscal policy response adopted by the government, which was on time basis feedback loop, instant time basis system, and it is a mix of stimulus measures amidst the certain evolution of pandemic situation. The initial phase of the pandemic, the fiscal policy focused on the building safety nets or the poor and the vulnerable sections of the society, and it hedged against the worst case outcomes. Yani ki the poor sections of the society which were struggling in terms of elderly, old age people, women, childs and other such peoples who were struggling during the COVID, तो उन सब की मदद के लिए, उन सब के अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए हेजिंग फैसिलिटी दी गई और स्टिमुलस प्रोवाइड किया गया. नाउ स्टिमुलस मेजर सच एज डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर, डीबीटी उनके खाते में डायरेक्ट पैसे भेजा जाना, कैश ट्रांसफर टू देयर अकाउंट, एंड वल्नरेबल सेक्शंस, इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट टू स्मॉल बिजनेसेस एंड वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट फूड सब्सिडी प्रोग्राम, that is Untitled Chapter, which was 80.96 crore beneficiaries enabled creation of safety nets. तो safety nets को provide किया गया कि vulnerable sections of society जो struggle कर रहे थे कोविड पीरियड में वो आगे निकल सकें और post pandemic situation में emerge कर सके and rise कर सके. So they were taken care of under this agile framework response. This was the basic motto of agile framework in order to produce more and more impetus to the vulnerable sections who were suffering during the COVID pandemic, such as villagers, who were women, elderly and minority sections of the society, to उन सबको and as well as the small and medium enterprises, MSME industries जो सफर कर रहे थे, उन सब के लिए agile framework लाया गया. Now the trends in quarterly expenditure which we see during the lockdown period, quarter first financial year 2021, it was around 90,000 crores. Then it ramped up after first lockdown, first wave के बाद expenditure to 150,000 crore, and again after sustained capital spending it again goes to 150 150,000 करोड़ के आसपास हम इसे देख रहे हैं आफ्टर द quarterly year for Q2 of 2021. This year we are showing the data as rising in terms of their overall development in terms of quarterly investment. Now this data makes again a leap forward for your mains point of view as how government forecast its budget in order to create a major data in terms of investment. जब ग्राफ राइज करते रहेगा तभी गवर्नमेंट पास ओवरऑल फैसिलिटी रहेगी इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ाने के लिए. नाउ कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट, changing mix of stimulus announcement in 2020 and 2021. So it was a food and livelihood process which raised to 88%, then revenue for gone to 4%, and health 8%. Remember friends, 8% of health expenditure. May June 11,85,000 crores of expenditure. So how agriculture sector, around 30% in agriculture, demand boosting 6%, liquidity support 37%, food and livelihood 12%, and other liquidity measures of around 15%. In November 2020, 2,65,080 crores were spent, and the liquidity measures around 3%, livelihood पे कितना खर्चा 6%, agriculture 25%, health पे 0.3%, housing पे 7%, and investment boosting के लिए सबसे ज़्यादा 59% expenditure किया गया है. Now in October, what we saw 73,000 crores of year, and first is consumption boosting में 49% was invested, then investment boosting के लिए 51%. Again it makes a better data for your means point of view. हम इसे याद रखेंगे, ये prelims में पूछा जा सकता है. Now the next slide is calibrated fiscal policy. How the fiscal policy works. So last couple of years we saw that fiscal policy was made in order to make the investment and in order to attract more and more private sectors to grow their economic activity, which were again under threat during the COVID lockdown period. So this fiscal policy stand has taken a flexible mode and liberalized policy flexibility of adapting an evolving situation in order to support the vulnerable section, again under agile framework and barbell strategy. So हम क्या करते थे, रिस्क को मिटिगेट करने के लिए बारबेल की तरह बैलेंस करने की कोशिश करते थे. We look to balance the risk by COVID vaccination and putting impetus on MSMEs and vulnerable sections and other various sectors of economy. So this was a huge leap forward by the economists of Government of India, which put impetus on the fiscal policy move by introducing Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, which introduced a huge leap of investment in MSMEs and various sectors which were lagging during the COVID situation. Now fiscal deficit was 46.2%, and it was compared to 135% during the same period of 2020 and 2021, around 114% during the same period in 2019 and 20. So ये कैसे, how is the trend of fiscal deficit from 114.8 in 2020 to again 135.1% in 2021, again 46.2% in 2021-2022. Remember this data. And the primary deficit, which makes the whole part of the expenditure. Fiscal deficit is the main part. बचत घाटा जिसे हम कहते हैं. Fiscal deficit remains constant. Then we have good process of expenditures, investment, and global market introduction, which is around 46.2%. Primary deficit from April to November sought to be around the 4.2% somehow, and which is nearly half of the level of pre-pandemic level reached during the April and November 2019. Now we look about the data which shows the trends in fiscal deficit and primary deficit. So first data which we see is showing how fiscal deficit from April to November 2020, 2019, 2020 and 2021. So it is again growing in 2020 and declining in 2021, which is fiscal deficit, but primary deficit again rising and declining. And in terms of the percent of base year, that estimate, it is again declining to 46.2%. Remember, for your PT as well as means.